call 'em, tell 'em you
Welcome
wanna
back
be
to Agritalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you could be with us this morning, along with Davis Michelson.
Hello, everybody.
So we are going to be talking biofuels, ethanol, and biodiesel today, and the EPA hearing that was held on Tuesday this week about the RFS, some of the concerns that the stakeholders in the industry have, some of the hopes that the stakeholders have for the RFS going forward. Let's get it started right now with Emily Skor, the CEO of Growth Energy. Emily, welcome back to Agritalk. It is great to talk with you again.
Always good to talk with you, Chip. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, were you on site or was this a virtual meeting?
It was a virtual meeting, so
Okay.
I beamed myself in along with everybody else.
Right. But it seems like the level of participation in this meeting was a little greater than what I'm used to seeing from an EPA hearing like this. Is that right, or is that just I'm not reading it right?
Well, I mean, in the past, when we've done it on site, and oftentimes it's in Michigan, there's actually a pretty good showing. I mean, people do really like to turn up for this. So I don't know that it was necessarily more than years past, maybe a little bit more diverse in some ways, but strong showing. But we usually have that every year.
Okay, very good. And, of course, the focus is on the proposed rules for the Renewable Volume Obligations, the RFS in general. But the help me get my head around this, because they went back and made some adjustments to 2016. The agency has finally proposed to restore the first 250 million gallons illegally waived from the 2016 RVOs, with a commitment to a second 250 million gallons for 2023. Why is this important, Emily? I mean, I'm looking at something that's 6 years old now.
Well, because we won a court victory over this issue of the illegal waiver back in 2016, and it took 5 years. We got a positive court decision in 2017, and it took until now for EPA to act on that court decision. So frustratingly, one of the things that we've come to realize is even when we win in the courts, we still have to make sure that the agency follows through on what the court is telling the agency to do. So it's validating for us. It's long time in coming. So we were very pleased to see, because, of course, we didn't get those restored gallons out of the Trump administration. So that was actually a good thing. Long time in coming, but a good thing. Right.
The biofuels groups in general, and their reaction, that was one of the things that they pointed to as something that said that, you know what, we're going down the right path with this EPA when it comes to issues like that. Would you agree?
I would. I mean, I think the agency is signaling that they're closing the chapter on some things that they inherited. Clearly, when it comes to small refinery exemptions, this administration, and in the proposal, part coupled with their proposed RVOs, was a proposal to deny the remaining pending small refinery exemptions. So they're signaling we are taking a different approach to SREs. We're taking an approach that's more in line with what we believe is the agency's role, to look at these very judiciously and to make sure that they are only handed out in an extreme situation of severe economic harm. So they're closing the chapter on the SREs. They're addressing the 2017 court decision. And, my hope and what they're signaling with 2022 is we may have the first year where the implied conventional volume of 15 billion gallons is actually met. Every other year, there's been a waiver or a small refinery exemption or some other thing that's been done to actually erode that 15. So we could have a true 15 for 2022, provided the agency finalizes this proposal quickly.
Okay. Before we talk 2022 and forward more, let's go back to 2020, because there is a change. Explain to us what they did to the RVOs, Renewable Volume Obligations, for 2020.
Yeah. So keep in mind, the obligations for 2020 were finalized in 2019, and they've been the obligation on the books for more than 2 years. So for 2 years, everybody in the value supply chain made all their business decisions based on that's the obligation, that's how we're going to approach it. And what the agency did is they said, 2020 was such a wacky year with COVID. We're going to go back. We're going to adjust down the volume obligations because fuel demand dropped because of COVID. Now, our comment to them, and the industry is incredibly consistent, that's entirely unnecessary because the obligation is a percentage standard. It already fluctuates with actual fuel production and demand. There's no need to take any additional step, and B, it exceeds the agency's authority. So it's a dangerous precedent for the agency to say, hey, something that's been finalized for 2 years, we're going to go back and change that, because they could do it moving forward.
Right.
That's the concern.
And isn't
right?
this, yeah, absolutely, adjusting that 2020 RVO down, isn't that the equivalent of a blanket waiver for the industry on a portion of the blending requirement?
You're right. So whereas in the Trump administration, what we were dealing with was essentially an exemption for a particular refinery, this is a waiver for every single refinery across the board, a blanket waiver.
Yeah.
And that's unprecedented. They've never done that before. And the agency has a long-standing record of saying we don't have the ability to retroactively go back and change something that's already been finalized. So it's a very troubling precedent that they're setting here. And so what you heard at the hearing Tuesday was a very consistent message across kind of our industry of that is unacceptable, and you've got to fix that in the final RVO.
Okay. All right. Now, let's talk more about the 2022. And like you said, it feels like 15 billion gallons is 15 billion gallons again for 2022. Obviously, the industry is in position, ready to handle that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when we finally get 15 is 15, that's when you're going to see E15 take off, higher blends, because you're going to have to blend E15 to be able to achieve the 15. So we're ready to meet that demand. Absolutely. You've got a lot of strong retailer interest that want to be able to increasingly meet that demand as well. So, I mean, the optimistic outlook is if they finalize these RVOs quickly, 2022 could be our best year under the RFS yet.
Okay, best year yet. I'm looking forward to that. What is standing in the way of E15 or unleaded 88, whatever you want to call it right now? What's the biggest barrier?
Well, right now, the biggest barrier is that the oil industry sued and won in the courts, taking away the ability for E15 to be sold year-round. And so if you're a retailer and you're looking to change the fuel mix, the fact that you can't offer E15 for 3.5 months of the year, that's a problem for them. That's a real problem for them, and it's something that they've got to overcome. So we had year-round sales of E15 for 3 years. It was good. It was great. There were no issues. And so now, unfortunately, as an industry, regaining that ability to sell E15 year-round has once again become one of our top priorities.
Right. And that's a Reed vapor pressure waiver is what we need for that E15, right?
That's right. It's a waiver because of fuel volatility measurement in the summertime.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Emily, there's this headline out here this morning that, and there's two sides to testimony at EPA on this issue. And now the headline this morning that I'm seeing from places like S&P Global Platts, refiners urge U.S. EPA to grant biofuel waivers to ease pump prices.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see wrong with that headline? Or where do we even start?
Where do we even start? It's utter nonsense. I mean, you're just totally confusing the issue. The more biofuel that we blend, you're actually extending the fuel supply, which is going to bring down the price at the pump. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what's frustrating to see is kind of out on the refining side, a lot of the same old arguments. I think they were rehashing those in their testimony on Tuesday. What we need right now is more biofuel, not less. It's going to be better for the price at the pump, and it's going to be better for, of course, our carbon emissions.
Yep. Yeah, the carbon emissions, the environmental benefits, that's going to be the kind of our motto, the biofuels motto for 2022, isn't it?
Absolutely, and Fortunately, we have an administration in the White House that's something that's going to resonate with them.
All right, very good. Real quick. 2022 is such an important year for the RFS. How are we setting up for 2023 in the reset?
I'm excited. Job number one is that we have strong 2022 RVOs because that sets the foundation for the
Yep.
set. All right, so 15 billion strong advanced
Good.
numbers. That's good. Let's finalize it as proposed, and we'll be in a good place. The set with EPA. That's the first conversation really where they're looking at biofuel and the RFS in the context of climate and the environment. So we are already talking with EPA about you've got to update your emissions modeling so we get credit for all the innovation that we've been doing the past 10 years. We are fully prepared to remake the case for why we need more biofuels in 2023 and beyond, but it's going to be a big rulemaking, and it's going to be a big lift for us as an industry this year.
Yeah, we need to make fuel quality an issue in 2022, don't we?
Exactly. Yep,
Yes.
exactly.
Emily, it's always great to talk with you. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work, and we'll have more conversations in the year ahead. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, that is Emily Skor, CEO of Growth Energy. A lot going on there at Growth Energy. We've got Donnell Rehagen from National Biodiesel Board next.